Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak. Again, we took a break, but didn't take a break from the conversation. A lot has been going on here behind the scenes. There's a clip I want us to play of the Deputy President yesterday speaking about the question of shareholding, because I think it's Dr. Ojwang here who is saying that that's a very crucial issue that would appear to relegate Kenyans based on how they voted. They said that they can only be served if they supported a regime. Here is what the Deputy President said last night.
Musalia Mudavadi and Wetangula signed a package for Western Kenya. I've never had anybody call them tribalists, but they signed an agreement demanding for Western Kenya. They demanded, and it was agreed it will be done, completion of all incomplete or stored bitumen roads, construction of an extra 1,000 kilometers of bitumen in Western Kenya, revival and modernization of sugar factories in Western Kenya, establishment of new industries identified in Article 22 of the agreement. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Kenya Kwanza agreement on shareholding. What crime has Gachagua permitted to be impeached by saying what President William Ruto appended his signature to, with Musalia Mudavadi and Wetangula who will preside over my impeachment? What crime has this man committed? The crime of this man is just being truthful, because people do not want these things to be known. That is the problem. People have a problem that I'm a truthful man. The people of Western Kenya has now known today what their leaders signed with President William Ruto. It is upon them to demand their share as per this agreement. I did not sign this agreement. I already the people who signed. But because I was present and I'm a truthful man, I fight for the people of Western Kenya.
So that's the Deputy President's explanation. Now, the motion reads that the illustration given here by Mwengi Mutuse, who signed off the motion, a government is like a company. There is shareholding. Kuna wale who have invested a lot of shares, kuna wale wameweka kidogo, kuna wale wamekataa, lakini wote ni wa Kenya. So ndio tukasema kama wewe umeenda kupanda mahindi, ama wacha nipeane example ya ng'ombe kwa sababu niko Kajiado. Wewe uko na ng'ombe yako ya maziwa, hiyo ng'ombe imezile ikiwa njao. Umeichunga vizuri, I'm reading verbatim. Umeichunga vizuri, umepata majani, umenunulia dairy meal, umepata chumvi, umepeleka kwa malisho, umepatia maji, imezaa, imeanza kukamuliwa. Wewe unatakiwa kwanza, ukuwe mtu wa kwanza kukamua hiyo ng'ombe na kunywa maziwa. Dr. Martin Olo, please.
Yes.
I'll get you, Dr. Komolo. Break this down for us.
Politics of coalitions, or politics in Africa or Kenya, or indeed anywhere in the world, including right now when you're looking at politics in the US, coalitions form around issues. There are Republicans who are now breaking away supporting the Democrats. There are people who are identifying with each candidate depending on where they sit in terms of the interest that candidate has. So politics bring about coalition of interests, and therefore politics has a way in which people can claim a stake. Mm-hmm. So saying that Kenyan politics or the Kenya Kwanza government is a shareholders government, it is absolutely true. There's nothing wrong with it. And these shares were built around votes, were built around blocks. So, for example, the Mount Kenya group said they will not form their own party, they'll join UDA. Mm-hmm. They came knowing that this was a vehicle they were coming into to protect their interests and to assure themselves in terms of their political future. Mm-hmm. The people in Rift Valley, the same, and others formed around it. And remember, when this Kenya Kwanza regime was going around, it was signing up MOUs with various regions, saying, if you vote for me, this is what I'll do, this is what I'll do. That is the basis upon which they were making decisions in terms of putting their votes. So they were buying shares by way of their votes. Now, figuratively speaking, you cannot say that politics is like a company and therefore shareholding takes the shape of a company. And even if you were not to say that, obviously those who voted have since reaped, for example, whether it is political appointments, whether it is ambassadorial appointments, whether it is government appointments, cabinet appointments. So when you look at this government, you can see that people have come in because they were supporting. If you went to Nyanza now, the people who were supporting initially came through as this or that. Of course, after the reshuffle, they went into the cold and then they were brought back. For example, I'm talking about one of the CSS that lost, that had to come back. So there are people who came in because they invested, because they risked, and therefore, in a sense, they build a coalition around their votes, a coalition around their interests. So there's absolutely...
But for persons that are sensitive to his speech and feel like they're being left out or discriminated against just because they didn't support in the last election, what do you tell them?
Did you hear Uhuru Kenyatta once said, sisi tunakula nyama na wengine wanafanya nini?
Wanameza mate.
Wanameza mate.
So Uhuru
now you can say that what he was meaning was discriminating others. Basically what we are saying is that in any competition, there are winners and there are losers in it. Unfortunately, our constitution does not have any mitigating position around it. The winner takes it all. Now, that in itself means that if your person is not in, if your vote hasn't gone in, there is a way in which you cannot expect that much. Now, this is to say that that is the political side of it. However, when governments are formed, are governments for Kenyans or governments for those who voted for it? Now, you can talk to students, you can tell students civic education about democracy, and the majority will vote. Majority will have their way, and the minority will have their say. You can tell students that. But in reality, democracy works with the majority, and when they go with everything. Right now, there are issues happening in America, and somebody is saying, I am going to deport, I am going to do this to immigrants and so on. There are people who are very enthusiastic. They are buying that project. Now, those people don't see anything wrong with that kind of approach once this person takes leadership. The others are saying, no, everybody should be in. Now, who want you if the other guys who want to deport others take over? They'll carry out exactly that. And you'll say that they're discriminating against others. But again, that will be sorted out politically. The issue of Roe versus Wade was a legal issue. Now it's a political issue. It might be sorted out politically, or it might remain where it is. So issues form coalitions, and around coalitions, ideas form, votes are cast, and people take positions.
Dr. Komolo, was this a bad joke taken too far? Because some of the claims, the illustration, him explaining what the government being like a company is, that in every company there are shares, preferential shares and ordinary shares. Where there is an AGM and shareholders do not vote or attend the AGM. When there are dividends to be divided, they are divided according to the number of shares. That is the truth. Those sensitivities that you hear, never mind, these are sentiments that were made more than a year ago.
I was telling my former president here that I think one of the biggest challenges Mr. Gachagua has is that he tends to overshadow his boss. And when you tend to overshadow your boss in a fractured country, then there's a risk that every small thing you say will be taken out of context. In particular, these statements, he made them, I think, early 2023, when the country was still fractured, when people were still politically very polarized and therefore very sensitive. But I don't think that making that statement alone is such a grievous thing, because the reality is that power has to be shared. And the reality is that in a tribalized country like Kenya, coalitions are built around tribes. Parties largely form or find a lot of their support base from tribal groupings. And those are eventually how power is divided. So it's not unusual that Western Kenya negotiated for 30%. I don't know what they got eventually. It's not unusual that Central Kenya will want more positions. And of course, other regions that are perceived to be opposition will want to come in. My bigger worry, and that has been a worry for a very long time, is that this conversation around tribal politics eventually take real oxygen from what we should be talking about, why people come into power, the real policies that Kenya Kwanza wants to implement to meaningfully change lives. So, for example, we are going to spend a month talking about impeaching Gachagua, and then, of course, we are most likely going to get back to Adani. And before that, nobody is talking about substantive issues like changes in healthcare, changes in education, things that then will bake a bigger cake, as Dr. Jong normally says, that everyone then can eat, even if you are not considered to be part of Kenya Kwanza and all that. So that's very unfortunate. But look, I think that if, on this particular shareholding thing, I think if Mr. Gachagua apologizes and explains himself the way he did yesterday night, I think it suffices. No point taking it too far, because obviously he has ambitions, and clearly he wants to consolidate his base in central Kenya, perhaps to use to negotiate later in life in subsequent elections. But he also has this bigger challenge that very central Kenya has very many young, ambitious, upcoming political leaders. So he will find it rough. The likes of, I think, the gentleman from Kiharu, you know them, including, of course, Professor Kindiki and all this team. Obviously, they want to have his position and perhaps rise to the level of presidency. So already Mr. Gachagua has enough challenges from his backyard alone. And so there's no point trying to alienate, because when I was listening to this so-called public participation, I also noticed that people from central Kenya and other regions didn't consider this a very big thing. They thought it's not their priority. That's what most people were saying. So to elevate it to a point at the National Assembly that a statement made from what to me looked like in jest, because I first heard him talk about it somewhere in Kericho, and you can understand the crowd he was talking to. Now making it big national conversation 2 years later, where it is even clear that the context he was talking is already fractured. I mean, the opposition, as we are already in government, controlling, amongst others, Ministry of Finance. And there are already negotiations here. Informally, you've heard people say about other positions to be reorganized. So he has lost that already. No point making it a serious issue as a point for impeachment, because I don't think it has...
So when you say that he needs to apologize and explain the context like he did yesterday,
which he did.
Do you think Parliament is that audience, knowing that 291 signed for his motion, whether they had seen the motion or not?
There are several MPs have had say that they signed to give him a platform to go and defend himself, which he will do today. But also we are talking about the same Parliament, some that ignored the Gen Zs until we reached where we reached in June, July, during that demonstrations. And I think I remember coming here and saying that I also underestimated the Gen Zs. In other words, I also didn't expect them to get to that point. I underestimated the public anger.
Yeah.
So Parliament is not immune from underestimating the people they represent. It is possible the 291 MPs or even more may be underestimating the real conversation that people are saying here, that, look, this thing is not our priority. It is not like this guy has not done something that perhaps warrants discussion, but it is not our priority. So if once the gentleman comes and explains himself, and personally from a legal standpoint, I think some of them should be processed by other agencies before they get to that level. Okay. I think that in the interest of the country and the broader body politics, it is important that even if the president and the deputy are in disagreement, there's a platform for them to reconcile. And we do have several wise leaders in this country who can bring them together so that they process their differences in a manner that then does not fracture the country long term. Okay. And of course, the president has a discretion to choose his deputy, and that is coming up in about 2.5 years when we are going for another cycle of elections.
All right. So, Dr. Ojwang, you felt so strongly, or you sounded so strong about the accusation of the deputy president on tribalism and the shareholding analogy. The explanations and the conversation here, does it suffice to say that this was just something said in jest?
You know, the deputy president is not a passive citizen. That office comes with a lot of power and clout and responsibility to set our values that include uniting Kenyans. So that's why I don't expect almost similar heavy burden from even Musalia. And therefore, it cannot just be, you know, I was just talking, because you have ability to enforce what you are saying as a deputy president, unlike other Kenyans. So, and that is why then, to them who much is given, much is expected. Maybe people might have lost their hope in the new constitution, but the new constitution really is a reset in Kenya that is talking of equality of citizenship. It's talking of non-discrimination. It's talking of equal development. We know what Dr. Martin is saying, that in history, the access to power involved all those goodies and all what it attains, personally and as a community. You just need to go to the presidential website and see presidential service delivery and see how skewed it is. Yet, I still insist that that is not our DNA. That is an aberration or a problem, but not part of our DNA. That is why in 2010, we sat and came with a transformative constitution that now clearly said that never again, it was almost a never again moment for Kenyans. Should we have a situation where some regions are supposed to be advanced, others left behind, based on their political choices? Is it ideal? Yes. But there is the gap between the ideal and the practice. Right. And as long as we live, it is our purpose and mission to try and narrow that gap. Are we there yet? No. But any effort and any step towards that ideal should be welcomed. And therefore, if the parliamentarians discuss the issue of unity of the country and the national ethos, and who is to assist the president to unite the country when the deputy is clearly saying, I'm going to concentrate on my villages? So who is to assist? Because those are some of the functions of the presidency, uniting Kenyans. Who is to assist, and who is the principal assistant to assist the president to unite Kenyans when you are saying, I'm going to be concentrating back here. Who is running the rest? And so those are not idle issues. It would have been okay if a law professor in there just said it. But this is a deputy president with a constitutional mandate. And therefore, I think my colleagues are like priests who have lost their faith in this constitution. And you know that happens. You find somebody still in the monetary, he's a priest, but he has lost his faith in what God can do. Sam, just you have lost your faith in this constitution. No. I have faith in it.
Yes, there is a difference between the constitution, having faith in it, and the practice. What we are saying...
That's what we're trying to now.
Yeah, but what we are saying is that what we are seeing has nothing to do with our constitution. It's simply taking advantage... It's simply taking advantage of the constitution. Because it has an impeachment, you disagree with me, you invoke it. That's okay. The truth of the matter, Dr. Juang, is that we still have a long way to realize the benefits of this constitution.
True.
And that the aspirations, even in Article 10, in terms of public participation, the aspirations in Chapter 4, in terms of Bill of Rights and Fundamental Rights, are things that are violated every day. If anything, the record that Kenya Kwanza has had of failed bills or bills that have been struck down for being unconstitutional is so huge that that alone should be a reason for us to be seeking their impeachment. Forget about what Gachagua has done.
We should.
And for everything. I may not agree with Gachagua on a number of things, but I also want us to protect his right to express himself. And he has a constituency. And he goes back to his constituency to explain to the constituency. If the constituency has a problem with him, he will have his day. But for now, this lynching.
Sam, may I have a question?
Sorry, have you finished?
No,
Dr.
I'm talking about
I don't mind.
If you are a deputy president, Dr. Martin, and you disagree with the cabinet position, and you publicize that disagreement,
yes.
Can we have a collective? Is it possible still to have a collective cabinet when you outrightly come? Because yesterday, from what I heard, is that on this decision of the cabinet, which was about removing Kenyans who are being flooded and who are being ravaged by the flood, who have gone to the riparian land that is set to be our safety valve, built there, and the plan to gently remove them and reallocate them so that that place cannot flood, and for the country to have the rivers that can breathe and flow. He disagreed with it.
Yes.
So if you are a deputy president and and the assistant to the president, and you disagree with the cabinet position, you think those are idle things?
No, but you see, we have it on record that William Ruto, while deputy, disagreed with his boss many times, and they actually took different positions. No. Let's not deny that we have a history here. What we are seeing is very symptomatic and consistent with how the other officers run. And you can say that of previous officers, whether it was Saitoti, whether it was Mwai Kibaki himself, whether it was Moi himself, whether it was Murumbi, whether it was Jaramogi. So there's a way in which our politics...
But Dr. Martin, there's a question he's asking, which I think is substantive, that a deputy president or a member of the cabinet disagreeing with the cabinet, what should that be?
You know, there's something that I want us to underscore here.
Yeah.
When I look at chapter 4 on the Bill of Right and Freedom of Expression, it does not discriminate. It doesn't say that when you are a deputy president, you cannot contradict the president, or when you are the president, you cannot contradict even what... you are free to express yourself.
How about
now,
cabinet decision?
Again, you can as an individual.
Okay.
You see, there's a difference between Gachagua, the deputy president, Gachagua, the politician, Gachagua, the Nyerian. You know, there are things that he has to play out to his constituents. and you may not agree with him, but you cannot deny him the right to express himself. Nothing can gag him.
Okay. Eric, is it a serious issue to depart from a cabinet decision because of persuasions that he's actually attributing them to? I will not oversee or supervise forced brutal eviction. President Ruto and I gave a solemn undertaking to the people of Kenya when I was asked to oversee brutal eviction without compensation, without due regard to the Constitution. I recused myself and allowed the Interior CS to proceed.
We are talking of a situation where we need to have hygiene in the politics that we carry out. And I disagree with Dr. Olo. Even though the deputy president has a right of speech, when you get into public office, it is very difficult for us to differentiate you from the person and the office, because everything that you say translates into the office that you carry. And that is why the Constitution, in I think Article 75 or 76, requires that a state officer should be able to conduct himself in private life or in public life in a manner that brings dignity to his office. And so to that extent, there is a problem.
Right.
And I think that, as I was saying, that there has to be a point at which the deputy president must understand that he is the deputy president of this country. And by default, a president in waiting, should anything happen to the president, because that is the design of the Constitution, that you are a deputy president, and the event the president is not there, then you step in. And so he is a potential president as we speak in our current...
So what should be the consequence of him contradicting some of those grounds with his explanation that he's choosing to respect the Constitution?
And that is the thing that now Parliament will have to investigate, to look at it and to determine how they want to deal with it. Would it, in a sense, then fit within the grounds that are set out for impeachment of the deputy president? I think not. Is it something that the deputy president should be censured about?
Yep.
I think yes. So
I think ultimately that should be the conversation. Okay. But let me also weigh in on something that Dr. Ojwang said with regards to uniting the country. And I think that we have to be honest with this conversation, because it is not just the words that unite the country. It is actually the deeds that unite the country. And so we understand, and that is why, for example, this talk of shareholding, a lot of Kenyans are finding it a little bit repulsive. We understand that there is certain schemes that you have to play to win power. But once you are in office, then you become a creature of the state. You become a creature of the Constitution. And so, in a sense, and if you look at what the president is defined, and the president here is the president and the deputy president, they are status, or they are an office of national unity. So how do you reflect national unity? You reflect national unity not just in your words, but in your deeds. When it comes to recruitment, yes, there'll be a question of looking at those that supported you, the regions that supported you. But you cannot exclude the other regions that did not support you just because they are outside the shareholders or the critical mass that voted to get you into office. And I think that is the dream that is contained in the Constitution. That is the spirit that is contained in the Constitution that we are yet to realize. And that, in my view, brings out the irony that we have. That Parliament can actually go and approve a list of cabinet secretaries that reflect the shareholding. That Parliament will go and approve a list of PSS that reflect the shareholding. That Parliament will approve the list of ambassadors and high commissioners that reflect the shareholding. And then after they have done that, and that's why we are saying that there is irony in this, and then that is why it becomes extremely difficult for anyone to be objective in this process. After they have done all that, they want to come and question and say, look here, you said this, and this is wrong. Yet they have themselves approved lists that reflect the shareholding that the deputy president has spoken about.
So when it comes to, for example, the responsibility, you mean?
Yes, and that's the thing. That's why I'm saying that we shouldn't be saying that in one instance we are going to enforce this constitution because you have said something, you have acted in a manner that we are going to enforce on this. But on this other one we are not going to enforce, because then what does it become? It becomes a subjective test. And I think when you listen to Kenyans, they go to that point where they are now saying, you know what, we have looked at how you behave, we have seen your contradictions, and we are not interested in that. We want you to actually go and focus on the things that we put you in office to deal with.
Right. And Eric, you said that some of the members of parliament are looking towards some positions for principal secretaries. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I meant that in the political realignment that happened, to the extent that now we have members of the minority party sitting in a broad-based government, part of the negotiations was that we will give you several cabinet positions, and we will also give you several appointments in public office, including offices of the principal secretaries. So they know.
So there are jobs to be lost to create space for some.
Well, I don't know what the president is going to do, but the reality of it is that the members of the ODM party know that there is a stake in government that they are yet to get. And so they must do their part to be able to access the stake that they have been promised. It's as simple as that. And I mean, this is a discourse that is within the public domain.
Now, Dr. Komolo, so we are here talking about collective, collective responsibility. Don't undermine your boss. I don't know if you've been seeing messages that are being sent by Cabinet Secretary for Labour, Alfred Mutua, backing the impeachment. Aden Duale last night tweeting and saying that all these are falsehoods by the Deputy President. So, what is that in the breadth of collective responsibility and not undermining your boss? Because Rigathi Gachagua is their boss.
Ideally, we expect the cabinet to act collectively, the doctrine of collective responsibility, and we don't expect to see a lot of dirty linen from members of the cabinet in terms of disagreeing over something that apparently they have agreed as a cabinet to implement. For simple reason, governments needs to be seen to be united, and there's need for continuity and need for ownership, even if you don't agree with the decisions. So it is not in the interest of the country that the ministers seem to, like Alfred Mutua is reported, went a bit personal. It's also not in the interest of the country that the deputy president dissociates from collective decision that was made. In this case, I think about Nairobi river cleaning and all that. But we are also in a democratic country, that you are able to own a policy of the government, a decision of the government, while also seeking for some level of variation to accommodate historical issues. So I think if I heard him right, what he was saying yesterday is that he will not want evictions to take place without compensation, without what he called humanity or whatever, human face or whatever. And we have in this country a history of very brutal evictions. We have in this country a history of people becoming homeless and landless for years for a variety of reasons, mostly land grabbing and all that. So to the extent that that variation is the point he disagrees with, then I think he should have processed it differently as opposed to appearing to incite people. But it is not a bad thing that he did disagree on a particular issue of historical context and of principle, and in a sense of ensuring that there's fairness in the entire eviction process. Look, Sam, nobody wants to live in an informal settlement. For somebody to live in an informal settlement, particularly a dangerous one like near the river, with the history of flooding and climate change, it could be just the last option they have. It could be that they just have nowhere else to go. And so this process should obviously be handled with some element of humanity. And my friend here, Dr. Juang, is a member of the Nairobi Rivers Commission. So in essence, he's in charge of cleaning the Nairobi River and ensuring we can swim the Nairobi River and other rivers across the county. So we expect them, as a matter of good conscience, as a matter of responsibility, to act in a humane way while executing their mandate, which we agree with. We all know how dumping and congestion of the Nairobi rivers led to many other things. Two, I think that, and this I think the president needs to intervene directly. I think he needs to call his cabinet to order. In that very cabinet, the Constitution lays out the hierarchy in terms of the president, the deputy, and then ministers, including how the membership is constituted. And therefore, we don't, even if we know they come from different parties for sure, we know they have different histories and perhaps personal differences from long before they joined the cabinet. But once they're there, we expect some order. Even if we disagree with the president or the deputy, we don't expect a minister to be going out and appear to be leading impeachment, because if this does not succeed, they cannot remove the deputy president from the cabinet anyway. So if this process does not succeed at one point or the other, they will still have to work together. We still expect them to make important decisions like CS Mutua's very big responsibilities around labor, very big, including Kenyans dying out of the country, all this, you can see them in the newspapers. And there's nothing that requires bigger collective responsibility than handling unemployment in Kenya, handling this this system of taking Kenyans to work out of the country, sometimes in conditions that have been reported to be slave-like. So Mr. President,
impeaching Rigathi Gachagua is not a labor issue.
That's a bit minor. That's a bit
If it is a labor issue, the more the reason why the cabinet secretary in charge of labor should
protect him.
Be able to protect his rights to fair treatment and fair labor returns.
Okay, now, so Aden Duale wrote on X, in anticipation, my comments as former majority leader. Well, we know he's the cabinet secretary for environment. And he says that anyone who took time to go through the special motion and evidence tabled last week in the National Assembly can tell the interview was just a decoy to play in the public gallery, invite sympathy and invoke emotions. Simply put, it was bare falsehoods colored as defense. Let's listen to what the deputy president said yesterday in regards to questions of corruption.
Let me thank all of you for giving me this time and appreciate the media for your role to inform the people of Kenya, to educate them, to entertain them, and keep them abreast with what is going on. I want to thank you for your coverage of the short public participation on this impeachment motion, because you exposed it for what it was, and your video clips are very useful for us as we argue in courts of law. You guys are wonderful. You are good people. No wonder you are called the fourth estate. I don't know where we would go in this country without you. We would have so much impunity. We would go back to dictatorship without the media. I want to encourage you to continue to be the watchdog on behalf of the people of Kenya, to protect the Constitution with zeal, to uphold the rule of law, and to call out impunity and corruption. And I want to say, after this impeachment, I want the members of parliament now to focus on the corruption scandals around our country. The Adani scandal, the issues in public health sector, the glaring theft of public resources. That is what parliament should consider and take time. And that is what the people of Kenya want. And I really want to thank the media for being a very responsible watchdog on behalf of the people of Kenya. Please continue writing. Where Rigathi Gachagua has gone wrong, please write. But always accord me the right of reply.
Now, Dr. Joang, I'll begin with you, then I can get you, Dr. Olo. What do you make of that? Because he sounds to speak the language of what Kenyans have been saying about the scandalous allegations that have been coming up. But he's also thinking the media, well, we know what the talk was 2 years ago and his relationship with the media, but now it appears that it suits this narrative. What should you make of that?
No, I think media has come through to his aid. The choreographed, is it coincident that the elder man in Baringo just spoke live to oppose the impeachment when Citizen was right there? So he knows those who have helped on the journey. He's right that media has really highlighted both issues heavily in favor of underdog, which is an impulse that media usually have, even in the US, to support Kojol, I don't know whether that's Dulu or English, those who are underdogs. And in this case, you know, after seeing the big numbers that signed the impeachment, I could see the impulse of media to try prop the other side of the story so that there is danger of a single story. And so I can understand why media is asking tough questions more on the other side, because one, of course, avoiding the impulse of lynching, and also trying to have a balanced and equal playground. Again, you know, Deputy President is an orator and a very good man. That for some of us who have met him, he's a very good person. if you meet him and you get to know him. But Article 2219 require impartiality of public servants. And I think I like what Theuri highlighted, because it is nothing personal. It's not that, oh my goodness, Kumbe, you are a good person. Kumbe, you are good to hang out with. Oh my goodness, you are funny. It is about the office. And therefore, I think this should be approached more from the point of view of institutional measure, rather than personal. I pray a lot. I fellowship. I have a good heart. It is possible to have all that and still trip at some point. And therefore, that article in the Constitution requires public servants to, both in private and public, to be impartial. Those are not idle words in the Constitution.
So which article did you say? I'm trying to look for
Article 22(1)(a), I believe, in the Constitution, requires impartiality of public servant. Or
I don't see that.
I think that's the Act.
Okay.
You're looking at it.
But again, the value and the principle of national unity bind all the state organs. The principle of national unity, so that the presidency is an instrument to serve the entire society. Let us not mix that. Presidency, both the president and deputy, is to serve the entire society, so that you cannot say, let me first deal with those who voted for me, and eventually the issue of impeachment is our safety valve in terms of check and balance. This constitution have a lot of checks and balance, and therefore you cannot praise one part and try to deem another part. Check and balance in the sense that the public servant should be constrained. That once you are elected, you are still being checked, you are still being monitored, and therefore there is that safety valve of impeachment. Therefore, let us not talk of Parliament as if they are officious intermeddler and not doing their duty that is given by the Constitution and by Kenyans, and that is why we have impeachment. And so far, we have not even had the motion, but somehow we are you hear a very dismissive thing, and in fact, you can see the impulse to say court is the avenue. The Constitution did not really look at the court. They believe that the parliamentarians are able and raise the threshold to 2/3. Let us have the due course and believe in the rule of law.
Let's come back and talk about that shortly. But first, I want us to go to Parliament because Emmanuel Toy is there. We understand that in the next hour, Parliament should be convening at 9 a.m. to commence hearing this particular motion. There are a few things that will have to be done. Preliminary agenda. Thereafter, Mwengi Mutuse will take the stand to make his case. He will have 60 minutes, but Emmanuel Toy is there. Toy, good morning. What can you see?
Well, thank you very much, Sam, and good morning. We expect something good today, or something amazing, as the members of Parliament assemble in the next hour to give some details about the impeachment motion on the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who yesterday declared he will not back down. He will be fighting to the end, and that means he will not be resigning from his office. And of course, the situation here in Parliament is as is right now. It is very cold, but we expect temperatures to rise both in the house and outside in the next few minutes. And right now, the security has been beefed. If my colleague Mauritius Odor, commander, could just show you some of the activities here. The police have actually taken positions in all roads leading into and outside Parliament. The Parliament Road has been closed since around 6 a.m. and members of the public and, of course, vehicles have been redirected to other routes accessing the national, or rather the city centre. And this has been the situation even when the motion was being tabled a week ago on the 1st of October by Member of Parliament for Kitui West, or rather Kibwezi West, Mwengi Mutuse, who will be moving that motion again today. He will have 60 minutes to do so, and also the leaders of the majority party and the minority parties will also have 10 minutes each to respond, and members of the National Assembly will have each 5 minutes to contribute into that debate, because we actually have 345 members of parliament right now, but not all of them will have an opportunity, because that will mean that we'll speak for the next almost 24 hours, but there will be about 7 hours for those members to contribute and give their voices to the 11 grounds that have been leveled against the deputy president. Right now, members are still arriving. The gate is not very busy right now, but in the next few minutes, we'll be seeing more activities from the gate to the National Assembly, where members will be coming in. But quickly, what we expect is that the report of the public participation will be tabled first when the House reconvenes at 9 a.m. And then thereafter, we'll be having the move of the motion moving and have 60 minutes to do so, and trying to explain to members why Gachagua must go home. And Gachagua yesterday, in a very extensive interview, or rather a press conference that lasted 2 hours, said that those were just trashed allegations, and he said that this is going to be a circus and the country is going to be served with frivolous grounds. But we wait to see whether the government, or rather the National Assembly, will have a way to circumnavigate through those grounds. And of course, remember, these proceedings are guided by the standing orders of the National Assembly, standing orders number 64-2, which says that this motion must be dispensed off with within 7 days of tabling, which is today. And of course, Article 145 and 150 of the Constitution of Kenya that also gives the roadmap that the members will have to vote. And for that motion to proceed or to move to the next stage, which is the Senate, it has to be supported by 233 members of parliament. The Speaker of the National Assembly ruled that even though we have 345 members right now, the House, the meaning of the 2/3 is still 233, which is the 349 members of the National Assembly. Remember, 291 members supported this motion by appending the signatures, but after the public participation process, we expect to see a few surprises here and there, some joining, some removing themselves from those lists, but it is going to be a very busy way. We'll be with my colleague Stephen Leto, Melito Letenges, and also others who will be coming here to give us some of the details. I don't know if I can just briefly engage Leto to give us some of the updates of what he expects to take center stage today. Leto, just a quick one. Okay, we're being told to go back to the studio. We'll be coming back with Leto for more of that. So that is the match we have from here. Sam, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Emmanuel Toh and Stephen Leto. We'll come back to you shortly to get more updates from that area, because the next few minutes we should start seeing members of parliament, specifically the National Assembly, arriving for the start of business of the House. But I also want us to take a look at the feedback that Kenyans are sharing with us this morning on the questions they have to raise with the panelists here in studio, so that we can get some responses. Sawa, you're saying that Rigiji's challenges are nothing more than a political numbers game. National Assembly outcome already set. He's being sidelined for daring to speak the truth and demand accountability from his own government. It's always been about their interests, never about the people. Peter, you're saying there are many issues that Kenya Kwanza promised Kenyans which are yet to be implemented. Impeachment of a deputy president is a non-issue for now. Let the government focus on service delivery. Katebe SK, you're saying from his execution last night, it is clear the DP is not as evil as his detractors want us to believe. In fact, he has helped us know so much that has been happening under the table or the while. Over to the MPs. Godi Baraza, where you're saying that yesterday the DP Gachagua tried by all means to make an impeachment case against him look wishy-washy, weak and insignificant. The task now rests before both houses of parliament to see through his veil of evasion. Accountability is key. Bob Jamwan, one major fact: Kenya is treading on the dangerous ground if political scores are settled on trivial issues. Right from the president, parliament and the entire government is culpable on the rot in the country. Engineer Lazaro, regarding Gachagua's tribulations are purely political, and political issues can only be better handled politically. Judicial process may not have much impact over Rigaji's case right now. We'll talk about what should happen in Parliament and should happen in the courts. But I also wanted us to listen to the Deputy President speaking about the question of the Director General of the NIS. We'll shortly listen to that because he is speaking about the motion, the allegation that he was sort of contemptuous of a member of the National Security Council, that he may have gone against what should be good order or running the affairs of government. Let's listen to him speaking about his speech after the president on 26th of June 2024 in Mombasa.
The Director General of NIS is not above the law. He is a public officer. Just like the President, the Deputy President, Cabinet Ministers, he too is subject to criticism like any other public officer. In fact, I'll have videos. President William Ruto, as Deputy President, at one time criticized the then Director General of the National Intelligence Service. In another video, he heavily criticized the then Inspector General of Police for the performance. I have learned from my boss how this job is done. It's clear. It's done. I mean, nobody, the president is criticized daily. The deputy president is criticized daily. And we take no offense. The Director General of the National Intelligence Service is not above the law. Why is Rigathi Gachagua being impeached for calling out the Director General of the National Intelligence Service? The Deputy President is criticized daily. The judiciary is criticized daily. The media is criticized daily, including the Star, whom I've criticized today. But that is as far as it goes. And again, despite being just the Deputy President, I enjoy a constitutional right in the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech. And if the Director General of the National Intelligence Service was aggrieved, there are mechanisms of how he can take me to court and sue me for defamation. And I will be able to argue why I said what I said. So that is not a ground for impeachment. I mean, that is curtailing liberties, the freedom of expression, the freedom to hold public officers accountable for their actions.
Curtailing liberties is what he calls it. Now, Dr. Komolo, Parliament...
You're actually denying me space. I must say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me start with you. Though you had actually...
He's interjecting too much.
You see, you're curtailing my liberties just like Gachagua is feeling curtailed.
Go right ahead.
You promised that after Ojong you'll come to me. Now I'm complaining. There is something that we need to connect.
Yeah.
There was an earlier conversation around the cabinet, Duale and Mutua.
Yes.
And we need to connect that Mutuse was a PA to Mutua. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mutuse, the mover of this motion, was a PA to Mutua. So there is a nexus there. There's a way in which Mutua has been commenting on this impeachment in a manner that seems to suggest that there are certain factions within the cabinet that seem to be part of the scheme. There isn't a way that you can say that even some of this information that is out in play is information that government itself has assisted to give the likes of Mutuse and so on. And again, I want to confess one thing which I think most of us on this table don't know. Gachagua and I were in university at the same time. We finished at the same time. The first job that we got into public service together with Gachagua. So he's somebody I know very well.
Comrade.
And it's a comrade. But the most important thing is that he has had a public service stint, and perhaps the most experienced person in this government in terms of public service. So there's something that he knows, having worked in the administration of Moi those times, that if, for example, he's saying what he's saying about intelligence and so on, give him the benefit. And that's why he's challenging and throwing the mantle, because he knows that in any mantle or in any fight, the intelligence can hardly come out with any information to defend itself. So that one, he knows what he's saying. They can't, because what they say is classified, full stop. So they cannot swear an affidavit and so on. So there's something he's saying. Having said that, the characterization of what we are seeing in the Gachagua impeachment is simply helping Gachagua gain national ground.
Why is he complaining?
National ground on politics. He's saying, why is he complaining? Why was Ruto complaining while he was campaigning? We are so short. We are so short. Our memories deliberately are short. The characterization of what we are seeing here, we've seen it before. Mm-hmm. When Mwai Kibaki was the deputy president, he spent all his time around Othaya. And in fact, he was called the vice president of Othaya. So what is it that Gachagua is doing that we haven't seen before? The politics we are dealing with in this country, we can sit here and romanticize our constitution and so on. It's tribal. And so what Gachagua is doing is solidifying himself. When you look at Baba, he holds his tribal base, and that's what gives him national a platform. So there is nothing that Gachagua is doing, and you don't know and tell me he's being tribal, he's inciting Kenyans. Let's forget about it. We live in this country and we know where the Jubilee Party was, we know what UDA is, we know what ODM is, and we know what political parties are, whether we're talking about NC or whatever. Mm-hmm. So let's not sit here and say like we have come from, a bubble somewhere, that what is happening here is not the ideal. This is our reality. We must live with it. Mm-hmm. Gachagua is our reality. We must live with him. And you can see him saying he's playing his boss script. The only thing is that his boss was never subjected to this humiliation. Okay, he was subjected to some humiliation. There are a number of times he didn't go to meetings he was supposed to be. He wasn't invited to cabinet meetings he should have been. He was humiliated. Yep. The president himself promised that he will never do that to his deputy. Now he must be held true to his promise, because in his own era, his deputy is suffering humiliation. There is nothing that we are saying here that cannot be resolved through a sitting, through a conversation, through mediation or something like that. So that if the president felt his deputy was off, you call elders and you sit down if you can't agree. So there's nothing we are seeing here that could not be solved in any other way. What we are doing, unfortunately, is throwing this country into continuous political spinning. This country's economy is doing badly, and it will not do better when we are squabbling. Investors won't come in here when we are busy fighting among ourselves. Tax won't be collected at the level at which it should be collected, because now we are even making it impossible for people to be accountable. And again, and I want to say this on this table, the issue of corruption in this country cannot stop one from holding public office. Mm-hmm. In fact, it's the very reason that people accede to public office. So to accuse Gachagua of corruption is the case of a pot calling the kettle black. Mm-hmm. Yet they both coexist in the kitchen doing the same thing, cooking and making sure that people have what to eat.
Now, you mentioned that Mwengi Mutuse was a personal assistant to Governor Alfred Mutua when he was governor. You may also want to remember that in his first term, he wanted to impeach his deputy governor. The impeachment motion got to the Senate, and the senators advised the governor, Dr. Alfred Mutua, that at that time he needed to reconcile with the deputy, that their marriage could not be separated by the Senate. Mm. It happened in history, and the records are there. I want us to take a short break. When we come back, we'll get to what Parliament will be doing today and where they separate instructions from the proceedings of the day. After the break.